Hi, I'm Lisa Warner, and this is the story of how my husband's family learned that sometimes the most powerful person in a hospital isn't wearing a white coat. For 2 years, they ridiculed me for being just a nurse while I secretly owned the majority stake in their prestigious hospital. But let me take you back to where it all began. I met Dr. James Warner in the ER during a particularly chaotic night shift. He was the brilliant new neurosurgeon everyone was talking about, and I was the charge nurse coordinating the department. What he didn't know was that I was also the anonymous benefactor who donated $50 million to the hospital's neurosurgery department 6 months earlier. You see, before I became a nurse, I built and sold a healthcare technology company for $200 million. But instead of retiring to some beach, I decided to understand healthcare from the ground up. I went to nursing school, worked my way through every department, and quietly invested in hospitals that needed help. James and I fell in love over late-night coffee breaks and emergency surgeries. He loved that I understood his passion for medicine, and I loved his dedication to his patients. When he proposed after a year of dating, I was overjoyed. I didn't tell him about my wealth. Too many experiences with people changing once they knew had taught me caution. That's when I met his family. The Warners were medical royalty. His father, Dr. Richard Warner, was the hospital's chief of surgery. His mother, Dr. Margaret Warner, was a renowned cardiologist. His sister Catherine was following in their footsteps as a promising oncologist. And then there was me, just a nurse. A nurse? Margaret had said during our first dinner together, her voice dripping with disdain. James, darling, surely you can't be serious. Our family has a reputation to maintain. Richard wasn't any better. When we envision our son's future, it involves someone more accomplished. Perhaps that lovely neurosurgeon from Johns Hopkins. But James defended me, and we got married in a simple ceremony that his family barely attended. She'll show her true colors soon enough, I overheard Margaret telling James. These lower-level staff always do. What they didn't know was that 6 months before I met James, I purchased a controlling interest in Warner Memorial Hospital through my investment company, Shield Healthcare Holdings. The hospital had been struggling financially, and I saw potential for improvement. I kept my ownership quiet, working through a board of trustees while I learned the hospital from the inside. For 2 years, I endured their constant belittling. Margaret would page me for coffee during important nursing handovers. Richard would blame nursing staff for his department's issues. Catherine would accidentally leave out nursing teams from critical patient care meetings. I took notes on everything, quietly building a file of inefficiencies and problems while working to improve patient care from my position as a nurse. I watched as the Warner family's mismanagement began to affect the hospital more severely. Their prestigious name had kept donors happy for years, but medicine was changing, and they weren't changing with it. The breaking point came last week. James had been growing distant, influenced by his family's constant criticism. During the hospital's annual board meeting, Margaret decided to make her move. It's time we address the nursing department's failures, she announced to the board. Starting with my daughter-in-law, who clearly obtained her position through marriage rather than merit. As I sat there in my nursing uniform, Margaret outlined her plan to restructure the nursing department, essentially pushing me out and replacing experienced nurses with cheaper, less qualified staff to cut costs. James sat silently, not defending me. When I looked at him questioningly, he just shrugged. Maybe Mom's right, Lisa. Maybe you should consider a different career, something more suitable. That night, I packed a bag and left their house. James didn't try to stop me. Margaret was delighted, already planning to introduce him to that Johns Hopkins neurosurgeon. But they had forgotten one crucial detail. The board meeting where Margaret had humiliated me? It wasn't over. Because in exactly 12 hours, Shield Healthcare Holdings would be revealing its owner, and I had my own plans for Warner Memorial Hospital's future. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital in a tailored Channel suit instead of my nursing scrubs. The board meeting was reconvening at 9 a.m. sharp to discuss the hospital's financial crisis, a crisis the Warners didn't even know existed yet. Through the glass walls of the boardroom, I watched Margaret animatedly telling her friends about my departure. Finally, we can restore proper order, she was saying. I already have 3 suitable candidates to introduce to James. I smiled, knowing what was coming. The hospital's financial director, Mr. Peters, was about to give his quarterly report, one that would wipe those smug smiles off their faces. Good morning, Mr. Peters began nervously, shuffling his papers. I'm afraid I have some disturbing news. Warner Memorial's financial situation is, well, it's critical. The room erupted in confused murmurs. Margaret stood up sharply. That's impossible. Our donors have been pulling out. Mr. Peters cut in. Our patient satisfaction rates are down 40%. Insurance companies are threatening to drop us. We're losing millions each quarter due to inefficient processes and outdated systems. Richard Warner's face turned red. Now see here, Peters. The numbers don't lie, Dr. Warner, Peters continued. Without immediate intervention, we'll have to declare bankruptcy within 3 months. James sat there stunned. Catherine was frantically typing on her phone, probably trying to verify the information. Then we'll find new donors, Margaret declared. The Warner name still carries weight. Actually, I said, stepping forward, it doesn't. Not anymore. All heads turned toward me. Margaret's eyes narrowed. What are you doing here? This is a closed board meeting. Oh, I have every right to be here. I smiled, placing my briefcase on the table. As the majority shareholder of Warner Memorial Hospital, I'd say I have a significant interest in this discussion. The silence was deafening. James's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. What nonsense is this? Margaret sputtered. I nodded to Mr. Peters, who pulled up a new slide. Shield Healthcare Holdings owns 75% of Warner Memorial Hospital, he explained, and has for the past 3 years. And I said clearly, am the owner and CEO of Shield Healthcare Holdings. I clicked to the next slide, showing documentation of my ownership, my previous company's successful sale, and my extensive healthcare investment portfolio. This is impossible, Richard whispered. You're a nurse. Yes, I am, I agreed. A nurse who built a $200 million healthcare technology company before deciding to learn medicine from the ground up. A nurse who spent 2 years watching this hospital's standards decline while collecting evidence of mismanagement, safety violations, and financial irregularities. Margaret's medical degree, which she'd been clutching like a shield, slipped from her trembling fingers. You see, I continued, while you were also busy looking down on the nursing staff, you missed what was happening to this hospital. Patient care has suffered. Staff morale is at an all-time low. And your prestigious reputation, it's been coasting on a name while medicine passed you by. I walked around the table, enjoying the shocked faces. But here's what's really interesting. The only department showing positive patient outcomes and financial growth? The nursing department you were so eager to restructure. The color drained from Margaret's face as she realized she'd just spent an entire board meeting attacking the hospital's owner. But I wasn't finished, because I had one more revelation that would shake the Warner family to its core. Before we continue, I said, clicking to the next slide, let's talk about the future of Warner Memorial Hospital. The screen displayed detailed plans for a complete hospital restructuring. As of this morning, Shield Healthcare Holdings is implementing a total organizational overhaul. Margaret tried to regain her composure. Now see here, you can't just. I can and I will. I cut her off firmly. The board has already approved these changes, unanimously, I might add, once they saw the financial projections. I began outlining the changes. First, we're implementing a new patient-centered care model, integrating nursing expertise at every level of decision-making. Second, we're investing $100 million in updating our technology and facilities. Richard stood up, his face purple. This is our hospital. You can't. Actually, Dr. Warner, it hasn't been your hospital since you nearly bankrupted it 3 years ago. Remember that mysterious investor who bailed you out? The one you never bothered to meet because, quote, they're probably just some wealthy businessman who doesn't understand medicine. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He sank back into his chair. As for leadership changes, I continued calmly. Dr. Margaret Warner, you're being removed as chief of cardiology. Your department has the highest error rate and lowest patient satisfaction scores in the hospital. Margaret's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Dr. Richard Warner, you're stepping down as chief of surgery. Don't worry, we'll issue a press release calling it a retirement. I turned to Catherine, who was trying to disappear into her chair. Dr. Catherine Warner, your department actually shows promise. You'll remain as head of oncology. But you'll be working with a mentor, a nurse practitioner with 20 years of cancer care experience. Finally, I faced James, who hadn't spoken a word. Dr. James Warner, your surgical outcomes are excellent, but your department's nursing turnover rate is unsustainable. You have a choice. Accept supervision from the new nursing director or transfer to another hospital. And who, Margaret managed to sputter, will be this new nursing director? Me, I smiled. I'll be serving as both director of nursing and CEO. Unlike some, I believe in leading from the front lines. James finally found his voice. You, all this time, why didn't you tell me? Would it have made a difference? I asked quietly. Would you have stood up for your family sooner? Defended your wife instead of suggesting she find a more suitable career? He had the grace to look ashamed. The good news, I continued, addressing the entire board, is that these changes will save Warner Memorial. The bad news, for some of you, is that medical degrees and family names no longer guarantee power here. From now on, patient outcomes and care quality will be what matters. I clicked to the final slide. Oh, and one more thing. We're renaming it Shield Memorial Hospital. The Warner name has lost its shine. Margaret actually fainted at that point. Catherine rushed to help her mother while Richard stared blankly at the wall, 30 years of presumed superiority crumbling around him. As the board members filed out, James remained behind. Lisa, he began, I know I don't deserve it, but is there any chance? That depends, I cut in. Are you ready to be married to just a nurse? 6 months later, Shield Memorial Hospital was transformed. Patient satisfaction scores soared. Staff turnover plummeted. Margaret took early retirement, unable to handle working under her former daughter-in-law. Richard actually surprised everyone by adapting well to his new role as a regular surgeon. Turns out he was a better doctor when he wasn't trying to run things. James and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. He worked hard to prove he changed, starting with publicly defending nursing staff in meetings. He even took a nursing basics course to better understand the profession he'd once looked down on. As for me, I still do regular nursing shifts alongside my CEO duties. There's something powerful about a hospital administrator who still knows how to place an IV or calm a frightened patient. Yesterday, I overheard a new doctor asking why the CEO was working a nursing shift. A veteran nurse just smiled and said, because she never forgot that the most important thing in medicine isn't your title. It's your commitment to patient care. And that's worth more than all the medical degrees in the world.